2022. Rainy night, South Florida, USA. The parking lot of a lonely Travelodge lights up the perimeter of the adjacent farmland nestled behind a bustling Waffle House and an abandoned fire station. Facing the parking lot of the Travelodge, a plywood nook is shaped behind the fire station, guarding from the rain both the unused electrical systems and a large, scruffy, green blanket turtle-shelled in flattened cardboard boxes, oscillating, breathing, pulsing, almost to the rhythm of the rain. "Ouch," whispers a separate homeless man as he watches from inside of his red 2015 Chevrolet Sonic LT parked outside of the Travelodge. He blows the last of his spliff's smoke into the industrial-grade THC sauna he's created inside of its cabin. He takes a deep breath. He watches two grounded pigeons squabble over a half-alive frog. He takes an incredibly long and deep and important breath. He drops the roach into a half-empty, large black coffee from Wawa and places the lid back on it. He gathers his bags and enters his room. He begins playing Vampire Survivors via his 13-inch MacBook Pro for several hours. He takes a cold shower. He takes a hot shower. He checks the hotel bed for bugs and or blood and or hair. He drinks a Koya vanilla bean protein shake and falls asleep. 2023. This is Vampire Survivors. I've always found a kind of magic to games that can be played with just one hand. Age of Empires, Dicey Dungeons, Civilization, Slay the Spire, Darkest Dungeon, Chess, Balatro, Go Fish with Grandma at the kitchen table. All endlessly engaging despite their lack of physical, biomechanical depth. There are plenty of games that demand mechanical and physical nuance with your fingers in ways that God did not likely intend. Anything from taking Katamari for a spin, to beating Ninja Gaiden 2, to playing the drums in Taiko. Some games just cost too much, physically. As games grow out their graphics hairdos and build bigger maps with more stuff to never stop doing added every week, how can you raise a family when the game never ends? What we need are great games we can play while we take care of our children. When a game can purely divorce you from reality, requiring only your eyes, ears, and right arm, it can become part of your routine very easily. For 5 human years, I played the World of Warcraft digital card battling game, Hearthstone, every single morning on my iPhone 5S for 1 hour while drinking coffee and having breakfast. It was able to occupy the lizard parts of my brain that demanded numbers go up and shiny objects bend to my will, while allowing me the physical freedom to go about my business, which was to eat breakfast and drink black coffee. Breakfast quickly became my longest meal of the day as I shouted, "The gates are open," to myself and flicked virtual cards at my best friend, who lived only a few miles from my house, presumably in the middle of the same ritual I was in the middle of trying to wrap up. If you played through and beat Ninja Gaiden 2 every morning for 5 years while trying to eat your breakfast, not only would your hands literally fall off of your body in agony, your coffee would get cold, and you cannot drink coffee when it is cold. That's the rule. You must throw it away. Do not put it in the microwave. That is shameful. If a game can nail a sense of progression and visual readability while retaining these control accessibilities, you can easily lose dozens of hours of your life over the course of days and weeks and months and years as you dabble for a few minutes, hours, ever so frequently to activate your brain cells. There's something wrong with us. This is obvious, but the hooks are impossible to deny. In Vampire Survivors, you play as one of a myriad of characters that seemingly have no connection to each other outside of their position on the character select screen. There's literally no explicit plot or narrative found within the game's 10 or so and growing levels. Each is a sprawling tundra of repeated tile sets, randomized turkey dinner locations, and on each landscape, enemies pile into swarms from all corners of the screen and walk towards you in your never-ending barrage of automated projectiles. When they inevitably perish, they drop gems that you pick up, and when you collect enough gems to fill up the blue bar on the top of the screen, you get a choice between 3, sometimes 4, upgrades to your existing items or new items if you haven't already filled out your weapon and artifact slots. There are dozens of weapons and dozens of artifacts, and all of the weapons have combination-based evolutions with artifacts that you have to discover. Unlocking the weapon evolutions leads to unlocking new parts of the stages, which leads to unlocking new characters, which leads to unlocking new stages, which leads to unlocking new ways to play those stages. The only thing surviving around here is your endorphin addiction. You will become the master of unlocking as long as you can survive the vampires. The game is called Vampire Survivors, but some of the characters you can choose seem to literally be vampires, so I'm not sure who's surviving who, especially given that when you achieve a 30-minute run, the literal death appears and rips you from this screaming world, and it's game over. No matter which map you are on, what powers you unlock, the dude just comes up and says, "You've been doing this for 30 minutes. It's time to go." This is how the game elevates itself among the lineage of one-handed games. It only lets you play it until even the game knows that there is simply no way you are still actively engaged, cutting your line from the drip feed, euthanasia style. The game is never wrong either. After a few complete 30-minute runs, I realized that at about the 20-minute mark, my character would become exorbitantly powerful, and I was simply moving in one direction or standing completely still, barely leveling up and stomping any version of an enemy swarm that the game could generate. It has all the god-tier power leveling of a strong MMO, but sped up by 1,000,000%, and there's no dialogue, and there's no one else but you, and it's also somewhat randomized. Yes, it's absurd, and yes, the music is awesome, and yes, power is meaningless and ultimately corrupts those with and without it, but like I said, by the time it gets to the limit, you get euthanasiaed. At first, I thought besting the projection of death itself would be the best option, trying to 360 no-scope the 4 inputs I had into some combination that would get me to succeed the horror. I tried using the terrain of the dairy plant map to hide, firing projectiles in hopes that they would not surpass my superior intellect. They would inevitably slip through the building and devour me time and time again. I grew numb to it, and then I realized how the Reaper's placement within your run is essential to keeping the "why am I doing this?" thoughts from intruding on the number firework explosion you should be enjoying. So the game kicks you back to the menu to reap the rewards of your successful run. After 25 minutes into a successful run, Vampire Survivors literally surrounds your character with enemies. An impenetrable fortress of swarming bats and ghouls and terracotta warriors and vampires and clay monsters and demonic trees and birds and worms and guys with guns and giant eyeballs and little eyeballs and literally Smurfs. A colorful digital dance for your brain as different colored numbers and pixel art models pop and flash, turning the screen into some kind of demonic 16-bit pachinko machine that is using an IV to monitor your heart rate and pulse to the beat of your inner demon. The first few seconds of this are dazzling. Your vicarious godhood via Avatar 20 minutes into Vampire Survivors almost turns vampire surviving into an anti-game, a treat for your future self and not a soul more, laying seeds in your mind that you will see grow minutes or hours or days or years later. But will you for a second think of your children? Your children will see your Vampire Survivors achievement score on Steam and dedicate their lives to being half as dedicated as you to anything that brings them joy. You kept going and going and going, and you unlocked all the power-ups and all the weapons and all the evolutions, and you fought every boss on every stage, and you thought you were opening a doorway for your children to learn to love, but instead, you start to feel the weight of how the game told you to stop playing after 30 minutes. You get it, don't you? You worry about what this might mean. Spending 7 hours playing a game that you control with only one hand and half of your mind. It's partly the allure, the beauty of its design, how you can escape both into the game and somewhere deep in your thought palace. How it invites you to wander off, subtly challenging your eyes and their memory receptors to distinguish the things on the screen, and then slapping you awake after 30 minutes with a cold rag rat tail to the keister right before you start to glaze over and forget what desert you're fighting in. Vampire Survivors' art style can be described simply in one word, that is, Castlevania. The series' trademark pixelated vampires with long cloaks and long hairs and long weapons keeps up, but everything is turned to 11, with some enemy sprites being quite big, with subtle points of motion making them take up more space and turn and twist closer towards your projectiles. The game looks nice enough, and it's readable at a distance while not seeming garish up close, but I would hesitate to call it pretty. Some of the weapon effects do verge on pure psychedelia, with wild color combinations and persistent, screen-altering pulses of particles and beams, which sort of creates another, more meta and personal level of customization, wherein you get to decide how Vampire Survivors looks to you and the people who can see your screen's radiation glow on any given run. There are certain weapons I can simply not use while playing the game via my 50-inch television set. The cats that also live in my house would turn my television into actual dust if they see the pichon bird dancing around the screen. I remarked multiple times while playing Vampire Survivors, wow, this would be a great PS Vita game. I have literally never held a PS Vita in my life. Maybe a Game Boy game. The game's toxic combination of Diablo, bullet hell, roguelikes, and open world games creates within it a vast network of possibilities that is hard to explain to someone who hasn't just played the game themselves. Vampire Survivors is a game that communicates itself to you, the player, immediately upon moving the joystick and seeing a little guy turn glowing red and then into glowing red numbers from the effect of your avatar's starting weapon. None of the game's genius is communicated in the deep lore of the characters, the level design, the weapons. It all comes down to the simplicity of the inputs and the confidence of the game's timer. I've always loathed a game that features a time limit in any capacity. Any activity, really, I long for pushing things out to their absolute limit, as I vividly remember the game Tornado Outbreak, developed by Loose Cannon Studios and released in 2009 by Konami for the PlayStation 3. Tornado Outbreak is actually somewhat similar to Vampire Survivors now that I think about it. The game has small, open-world style levels with multiple objectives given to you to complete, a character with a large area of effect style damage hitbox, and an unavoidable, strict time limit to go along with each stage. Main difference being that the timer in Tornado Outbreak felt arbitrary and unbalanced. Picture a teenage boy yelling at television he is sitting directly in front of. DualShock 3 in one hand, other hand pointing at the TV. There's no way you can do all that in 12 minutes. While the time limit in Vampire Survivors feels reassuring, a statement of the game's desire for you to try again. Really did not like Tornado Outbreak. Sorry to all the devs on that one. Thing really is terrible in a lot of ways, and I don't like remembering it all the time, but I absolutely do. Every time I see a tornado, I think about those horrible timers. Can you really go 30 minutes, mate? The computer whispers. Your life has been a series of events and relationships wherein you couldn't see when enough was enough. There's no achievement for playing the game for 7 hours in one sitting. There's no achievement for having the most endorphins out of everyone in this Travelodge combined. There's no achievement for sticking around after someone's hurt you. For some, there is simply no other way to learn. Our minds are so fragile and easily manipulated. Sometimes even games that are wholly original and well-designed can't help me from escaping the thought that it seems so damn easy to get and keep our brain's attention. So many of the things that we use to keep us going are just very complicated versions of making our brain happy via chemicals, and Vampire Survivors is no different. And just like in real life, there's always that damn Grim Reaper coming back to his God-created maps to roost on your pile of bones. If the Reaper's hands came after I hit the level cap or killed a certain number of enemies or some other player-controlled goal, I would feel cheated almost. I would feel like the game was robbing me of doing more than I did within my run. But placing the embrace of death so confidently, so astutely, at the 30-minute mark, I feel grateful, respected, in control. I wish there had been some kind of Reaper to visit me during my 15th solo Destiny strike in a row, learning nothing, going in circles, watching the same digital heads pop off the same digital action figures, with no remorse from the game. No forceful hand to close our eyelids and tell us that we can't run from the nightmare anymore. I wish there had been some kind of Reaper to tell me that I didn't have to forgive them for what they did right away. That I could have put the controller down and moved on with my life. Your time is up. Go outside. Take care of yourself. 2024. I am a survivor. Playing Vampire Survivors today in 2024 is like playing 4 different versions of Vampire Survivors all at once. Simultaneously working to unlock upwards of 5 to 6 challenges or characters or weapons or evolutions or power-ups or new maps for 4 different substantial DLC add-on packs creates a dizzying mind chemical concoction. Juggling many slow-moving plates and anticipating their arrival strategically becomes the, quote, name of the game. Just about as much as herding and movement are the name of the game. That's right. Calling all you cow farmers out there. If you're good at rounding up the cattle, then you can survive some vampires. To all the fullbacks out there, if you can juke and shuffle from the away 20-yard line into the home end zone at top speed, then you can survive some vampires. Vampire Survivors becomes one of those games that never seems to move fast enough the more you play it. Waiting for these plates to finish spinning can become somewhat tedious, even in hyper mode where the game moves at literally double the speed. As an exhaustive VS player, this is easily my preferred way to play if I'm just trying to jump in for a little hit of that flashing number nectar. Hyper mode does slightly enhance the only real issue I often have with the game, which is that it can sometimes be hard to near impossible to tell which tiles on the screen you can traverse and which ones are just for show. and often the boundaries for an asset or tile are simply just incorrect and are too big or too small for their size. Again, it's a minor issue, and the game is all about replayability, so ideally you would be able to retain the knowledge of which tiles are which, but the initial process can be frustrating. In its later stages of living inside of you, the game becomes just as pleasant and enchanting to your eyeballs as it does to your actual brain meat. Your trickle of rewards is so vast and easily laid out for you via only having 2 currencies and helpful clickable UI design that ensure you always know what to do next to see fireworks explode across the screen. New gameplay variants are added via the new characters, weapons, power-ups included in the add-on packs, many of them doing some variation or combination of pushing the game engine to its absolute limits or presenting strict starting weapons that require specific strategies to get deeper into a run. As the DLC packs go on, as of writing, Operation Guns is the latest, as branded Contra tie-in that is actually really nice and a great tip of the hat to the Konami series. They increase in scale and detail, creating specific events, items, enemies, and secrets for each new pack released, 4 total. These help to deepen the investigative, discovery-centric core of the game, as it always feels like there's something to chase, some challenge to try, or weapon to evolve, or map to master. For someone to start playing the game in 2024, they have plenty of feed to drip into their horribly dry and starving coffers, and all for about the price of a Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. That's right, the game is cheap. We can talk about the value of art and how it's defined in a capitalist world all we want, but at the end of the day, broke-ass people are the majority. So if you want your art to reach the most people, you're going to have to make it affordable. I'm sorry. I know you worked really hard on it. Ponce has seemingly made this their mission statement as the game released out of early access for $5 hairs and each subsequent add-on pack for half that. I've spent the last 2 years playing and writing about a product that only ever cost me $15. Perhaps the cost was much more than that. The depth of Vampire Survivors, like any great game you keep with you, lies in your memories of it and the ways they change or stay the same as the game changes and as you change as a person. The Vampire Survivors I play today in this same Travelodge in the same exact room number as when I started playing the game 2 years ago is only different from the vanilla version of the game superficially. There's so much more Vampire Survivors now than there ever was. More versions, more characters, more weapons, more stages, more unlocks, more challenges, more graphics, and more vampires. And still unclear as to who the vamps are and the vamps are not. Come on, guys. And perhaps I, too, have only grown superficially. More ideas, more plans, more money, more cars, more drugs, more food, more music. Maybe it's to say that people in the art they create are often exactly what they seem to be on the surface. And it's only through your eyes, through my eyes, through your memories, through my memories that something of value begins to take shape. Perhaps it's all perception after all, and perhaps there's not much we can hope to do in affecting change in our own lives, but to continue to pile memories on top until we can't see the forest for the trees, and we start to feel like someone new. What I'm trying to say is Vampire Survivors is at its core a very good video game that is simultaneously innovative, singular, and totally timeless. And you should know that what it does to your mind is not evil magic. It is simply whatever you want it to be. Unless, of course, you struggle with epilepsy, in which case it is absolutely evil magic, and I suggest you do not even glance the game's digital store page. None of us have control over the pale light of our memories. The things we hold on to and the things we let go can seem so arbitrary. So many of the things I hold to be truths got pulled from casual conversations or signs on the side of the freeway. The ways and reasons you connect to art or the people behind it can also seem arbitrary or superficial. I don't believe that all of the art I love is unproblematic or even good, but I can dig into my memory palace and put together the pieces of why I like it the way I do, the things that it reminds me of. Through our human struggle to grasp onto the pale light of memory and keep it alive, keep it in correlation to the master document, we turn to art that reminds us of those things in microcosm, so that we might bear witness to these pale lights as tangible objects, if only for a brief moment. Vampire Survivors, for me, creates tangible a long-held feeling of peace, a memory of moving on, a prophetic vision of the places we long to go, and a mournful phosphane of the times we spent together. So long. Take care of yourself. What you're doing is you're blowing hot air. I don't know if you're aware of how hot it is. The words that come out of your mouth, and they're so hot that they actually burn into the SD card, almost like vinyl. You know what I'm saying? It like takes up physical space as like hot burnt etchings onto the SD card. And they're transformed via the microphone into the mixer, into the Zoom recorder, which burns them, I guess. We're gonna gain down some of the high tones here. There might be a slight hiss on account of the air conditioning, which is non-negotiable. It is a standard of human life, I believe, that you get to have air conditioning. That's the whole point of being a person, of being around. Is that what happens is you get to be in a building with air conditioning, and then the air conditioning feels really good because it's really hot outside, which is usually where you would be. Most people would be outside normally, but since we have air conditioning, most people go inside because outside is hot. We could deal with it. We could take a little break from ourselves and kind of grin and bear it, but we choose not to on account of the wide availability of myriad of air conditioning technologies. We love it. And a doctor and a piper and a piper and a piper and a pecker and a pecker and a piper picked a pickle off his